tomorrow. We'll get through this together, right? Anyways, so first up, our first, well, I was going to say our first main speaker. Our first main speaker was my chair, Jean Vincent, of course. But our next speaker, we can't do this without sponsors. Anybody who's organized any type of event like this, you can't do it without sponsors. It costs money just to put water on the table, right? So it's an expensive event, and without our sponsors, Jean mentioned, excuse me, Jean mentioned a couple of them. So platinum sponsor, Farm Credit Canada, FCC. Gold is Fern Software. My friend Eamon, who came all the way from Ireland for this. Silver sponsors, Meridian and Futurepreneur. And then the other ones are bronze sponsors, Canada Post. So they sponsored the delegate bags. So everybody got a bag. Their logo's on that. All the health breaks are sponsored by First Nations Bank of Canada. We have the bronze awards as well for tonight for the gala. BDC, EDC, Export Development Canada. Again, Fern Software. Fern, twice they sponsored. They really like me. Affordance, DMZ, and then the gala itself is actually sponsored by Financial Management Board. So let's introduce our first main speaker, Michael Hoffort. He's the president and CEO at FCC. If you don't know who FCC is, they are Canada's leading agricultural and food lender with a healthy loan portfolio of more than $44 billion. Their employees are dedicated to the future of Canadian agriculture and food. They provide flexible, competitively priced financing, management software, information, and knowledge specifically designed for the agriculture and food industry. I'm not going to read all of this. Michael can do way better job than me. So Michael Hoffort, platinum sponsor. We thank FCC. Come on up, please, sir.
Well, good morning, everybody. Bonjour tous. It's an honor to be here, and I'd like to, thank our chair, Jean Vincent, for his update on the great work that's been happening at NAC over the last couple of years since we got together, and also Elder Leonard for his prayer and his comments, and that Spirit Wolf Singers, that drum. There's not a microphone on it or a speaker, and I could feel that pumping through my body as they were going. So a great way to start the day. There's a lot of energy in the room. It's nice to be back face to face with everybody here after a couple of years of being away. So as it was said, my name is Michael Hoffort. I'm the president and CEO of Farm Credit Canada. My home is near Regina. It's in Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, the Anishinaabe, the Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Where we are today in Gatineau is the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people who have occupied this Ottawa watershed for thousands of years. It's very meaningful for me to be able to join you at NACA's Indigenous Prosperity Forum, and I applaud the theme of this meeting, reconnecting, investing in the return to Indigenous prosperity. At FCC, we want to be part of this investment. So a little about FCC. You might ask yourself, who is FCC and why are we here? And I want to introduce us, and it's been done a little bit before, but we're a commercial corporation with a focus on agriculture, agribusiness, and agri-food processing. We have a loan portfolio of over $44 billion, and we're the only lender invested 100% in Canadian agriculture and food industry. In addition to financing, we support our 100,000 customers with knowledge and software. FCC was established in 1959 under the Farm Credit Corporation Act from the founding organizations of the Canadian Farm Loan Board and Veterans Land Administration. And that plays into our truth and reconciliation journey, which I want to talk about next. In order for us to achieve the reconciliation we're working towards, we need to acknowledge our own truth as an organization. As I mentioned, FCC was founded from a merger between the Canadian Farm Loan Board, which came out of the Dirty 30s, and the Veterans Land Administration, or VLA. And FCC's first chairman was a Brigadier General, T.J. Rutherford. The VLA was established to help settle veterans returning from the World Wars into careers in agriculture. Pretty thoughtful stuff. But what few Canadians understand is that the VLA was complicit in the systemic racism that excluded Indigenous veterans from receiving the similar benefits, and in some cases gave portions of First Nations land to non-Indigenous veterans to start farms of their own. Farm Credit Corporation of the day also did very little to encourage lending to First Nations that were interested in participating in agriculture. This is our truth. This is our history. Indigenous people's strong connection to the land was built into treaties that saw the nation's transition from bison culture to agriculture. However, early successes and the ability for growth was systematically eroded due in part to constraints of the Indian Act. FCC did some lending under the provisions of the Indian Act, but admittedly, our efforts to serve First Nations people on reserve were sporadic and inconsistent, and were a result of the interest of a few employees, not as a result of organizational competency or commitment. The Truth and Reconciliation calls to action were a turning point for FCC and our journey. As a federal Crown corporation, we have an obligation to advance how we engage with and support economic development of Indigenous peoples and communities in their efforts to enter the industry and grow their agriculture and food businesses. The progress we will make with Indigenous groups in Canada will begin at a personal level. We're a relationship-based organization, so our journey is also with our employees. All of our employees have taken Indigenous awareness training, and I've had the opportunity to learn from many. I believe that you have to feel it before you can really get it. To be open, most of our staff are unaware of our country's history, and the reaction of many has been sadness and in some cases a feeling of guilt about what we've learned. I'm thankful for the wisdom of Sean Sunias, our Director of Indigenous Relations, who has encouraged employees to not feel guilty about what they're learning, but to feel proud that they're facing these truths. It's all part of the process. I've had the opportunity to participate in a pipe ceremony while signing an agreement with File Hills Qu'Appel's Tribal Council, in a round dance here at the NACA Gala the last time we got together in 2020, and I've had the chance to learn from Senator Marie Sinclair during an FCC leadership event. During each time, my Indigenous hosts were incredibly gracious, open, and inviting to my participation and my learning. FCC needs to act to reciprocate this grace and invitation to Indigenous peoples coming to our offices. We are taking action to have more Indigenous artwork and symbolism in our office spaces, 100 across the country, as an example of demonstrating visually our openness to doing business with Indigenous communities and entrepreneurs. We're also opening our first office on reserve in Millbrook First Nation in Nova Scotia in the coming year. All of these are positive steps in our Truth and Reconciliation journey. So I go back to the question I opened with. Why is FCC so interested in being part of this conference and investing in economic reconciliation? In short, I see the agriculture and food industry as one of the most significant opportunities for this country and our Indigenous peoples over the next century. I want each of you to consider how you might be part of that future. By example, in 2015, The Economist magazine wrote, "In the next 40 years, humans will need to produce more food than they did in the previous 10,000 years put together." Canada is one of a very few number of countries that will be capable of contributing to that global demand for safe, abundant, high-quality food. The opportunity for agriculture and food industry isn't just because of the growing population, it's also because of more people than ever entering the middle class and in a position to pay more to improve the quality of their diets. Combining this increased demand from the population and economic progress with the potential and capacity of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit across Canada to sustainably produce great quantities of food for their communities and buyers around the world is a historic opportunity to be seized. Supporting Indigenous agriculture as a means of economic reconciliation is our joint opportunity ahead. And some nations and their economic development corporations are already well on their way. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with Shannon Metatawabin and Jerry Hubner from NACA to learn more about their programs and their funding of the AFIs. And then with Keith Martell of the First Nations Bank of Canada. In both meetings, they described the incredible success taking place in Indigenous-owned companies and more broadly, economic growth in Indigenous communities across our country. I distinctly remember discussing the lending practices on reserve and the challenges of the Indian Act with Keith Martell and him saying, if it's a solid business proposal, we never let us hold us up. You know, and after these meetings, I recall discussing it with our CFO at the time, and it was really crystal clear that we need to rethink what we were up to as an organization. Again, this was another step forward in our journey. We're on the path of implementing our Indigenous strategy and have taken solid steps. FCC is building our internal capacity of lending approach, and our processes. FCC has expanded our definition of agriculture to include traditional products such as wild rice, syrups, saps, medicines, herbs, mushrooms, and other non-timber forest products, and expanded lending for more traditional activities such as foraging and wildcrafting. Being stewards of the land and its resources is, of course, ingrained in Indigenous culture, and investments in sustainable agriculture feel like a natural fit. FCC has established a dedicated team of specialists to provide financing and services to on-reserve First Nations, economic development corporations, and individuals. Our expertise extends beyond primary production to include agribusiness and agri-food processing. And there are many exciting opportunities along the agriculture and food value chain. For our friends at NACA and AFI's present, we are looking to support, to complement, and partner to create greater financing capacity, not to compete. A number of key FCC leaders are here at the conference and ready to connect should you have questions on the potential as a potential customer or a lender that might want to explore how we might partner in the future. FCC is proud to partner to be a partner of the NACA, Indigenous Growth Fund, along with the Government of Canada, BDC, and EDC. This fund is about creating partnerships and increasing the capacity of AFIs to serve First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. The fund will improve access to capital and extend funding for projects beyond current caps, both on and off reserve. And I'm looking forward to hearing the discussions that are going to take place later this morning, along with the panel. In 2019, we created the FCC Indigenous Relations Team under the direction of Sean Sunias. And I'm pleased with what's being done these past 3 years, and I'm excited about the areas of focus for the team in the coming years, which are advancing our core lending competencies, developing knowledge, implementing an Indigenous procurement strategy, and as I mentioned earlier, implementing an office branding strategy. We're working towards our PAR certification with the Canadian Council of Aboriginal Business. This certification will ensure that we're taking action on the 4 drivers of best practices in Aboriginal relations, being leadership, employment, business development, and community relations. Oh, I'm one ahead, that's okay. Lastly, I want to mention that we are exploring a concept we are calling a Circle of Excellence to support a catalyst of action for Indigenous agriculture and food across the country. The intent would be to share knowledge and build capacity across a variety of organizations. And we're currently in the consultation phase. So if you're interested and you'd like to discuss this, we'd love to hear from you and some of your ideas and what might bring this idea to life. In closing, I want to thank you for this opportunity to address you today. It's a great honor. I want to congratulate Shannon and his team for organizing this important conference. And I want to wish you all the best of success over the coming days in the future as you invest in greater prosperity. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Michael. That's super appreciated. We're all here